Good afternoon. This webinar offers closed captioning. Welcome to the City of Chicago Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection free business education webinar. This webinar is being recorded and will be available at youtube.com/Chicago BACP. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. All BACP webinars are a part of the BACP Entrepreneur Certificate Program, which is a free program for anyone interested in starting or growing a business in Chicago. Getting your certificate is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1, register for the program. 2, attend 6 webinars in 6 months. Or 3, graduate to get your certificate. Graduating makes you eligible to apply for CIBC Bank's Entrepreneurial Loan Program. Note that you must already be registered for the program to get credit for attending today's webinar. For full details, visit chicago.gov/BACP certificate. The information mentioned will be posted in the chat box. Today's webinar is How to Obtain a City of Chicago Business License, presented by BACP. Turning it over to Lawrence. Good afternoon. This webinar offers closed captioning. Welcome to the City of Chicago Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection Business Education webinar. This webinar is being recorded and will be available at youtube.com/Chicago BACP. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. All BACP webinars are part of the BACP Entrepreneur Certificate Program, which is a free program for anyone interested in starting or growing a business in Chicago. Getting your certificate is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Register, attend, and graduate. Graduating makes you eligible to apply for CIBC Bank's Entrepreneurial Loan Program. For full details, visit chicago.gov/BACP certificate. The information mentioned will be posted in the chat box. Today's webinar will be How to Obtain a City of Chicago Business License, presented by BACP. Turning it over to Lawrence.
Good afternoon. I'm the BACP Business Consultant Supervisor, Lawrence Smith. I'm one of 3. Today I'm going to be going over how to obtain a City of Chicago business license. I'm going to cover online versus in person. I'm going to cover obtaining business registration documents, submitting an application. I'm also going to cover receiving zoning approval. I'm going to cover completing an application, paying for a license, passing license inspections, resolving account holds, receiving license certificates, and how to renew them. So first, you can apply for a business license either online or in person at City Hall. What to expect online, you have to create a profile first for our website that we call Chicago Business Direct. Then once you do that, you'll be in constant communication with our staff. In person, you'll receive a ticket. You'll meet one-on-one with BACP staff, and we'll address any concerns or questions and process your application. All applicants must register their business with the appropriate government entities. In Chicago, it's the Illinois Secretary of State is where everything starts from. Required documents may vary by business legal entity types. Common documents include your government issued photo ID, the state registration from the Illinois Secretary of State, as I said earlier, the Illinois Department of Revenue account ID number for sales tax or wholesale purposes, and an employee ID number, FEIN or EIN number from the IRS, Internal Revenue Service. Now, if you're going to submit an application, in person, you'll submit either a business information sheet or online the initial information on the information sheet via the Chicago Business Direct website. At this initial step, the applicant must provide the business registration information, ownership information for all controlling persons, this business address, the square footage of the business location, and a detailed description of all business activities to be conducted. The most important part, I would say, in my opinion, is receiving zoning approval. The zoning review is the first step to the app review process to ensure that the business activity is allowed at a specific address. The zoning review process requires a detailed, accurate description of the proposed business activity in space from the previous step. A site plan or survey may be required for some uses. A review of architectural plans prepared by a licensed architect in the Department of Building Permits, they may be required for some applications as well. You have to be in compliance with parking requirements. And also, we verify a valid driveway permit from CDOT. All right, so the receiving zoning approvals. Keep in mind these zoning reminders. Do not enter into any financial commitment unless the City of Chicago has confirmed as part of the license application process that your proposed business activity is allowed at your address. In my opinion, we give this out in writing. I would always get our decision in writing from us before you proceed. Do not assume that the previous occupant's zoning designation applies to you. Sometimes the zoning changes. You also may be required to provide plans prepared by a licensed architect and Department of Building Permits to establish your use. All right, so completing an application. After zoning approval is granted, a full application is provided to the applicant for completion. Completion of the application includes verifying all ownership information, providing a lease or other documentation showing control of the property, answering application questions and making attestations. BACP staff will review the application for completeness prior to approving it for payment. Paying for a license. After the complete application is accepted, the application will be the applicant will be prompted to make payment for the license. The license fees are non-refundable and vary in cost based on the license type. In-person license applicants must pay in person, and online license applicants must pay online. Note that the payment does not mean the license will be issued. Payment triggers inspections and final approvals prior to the license being issued. Inspections, passing license inspections. Inspections by one or more city departments may be required based on the license type. Typical inspections include a debt check from the Department of Finance, a health inspection from the City Department of Public Health, a building inspection from the Department of Buildings, a fire inspection from the Chicago Fire Department, and a fingerprint-based criminal history investigation from the Chicago Police Department, the Illinois State Police, and BACP. Resolving account holds. Before the license can be issued, all holds on the applicant's license, on the applicant's account must be resolved. A typical hold may be overdue city tax filings, outstanding fines resulting from business enforcement, parking tickets, overdue public way use payments. For renewal apps, outstanding changes to be made on the license, like a change of officers. Notice of holds include instructions on how to resolve the hold, and they're sent by mail to the business locations and are available on Chicago Business Direct too. Receiving your license certificate. After all inspections are approved and all holds are resolved, the license certificate will be issued by the United States Postal Service. How to renew. Licenses must be renewed online prior to expiration. You log into the Chicago Business Direct website below. You also will see instructions on how to resolve holds on the account online. Update all other information, so contact number, mailing address, certain things like that. And you also, this mostly applies to just daycares, but you must pass all renewal inspections if required. If any changes to the business have occurred, those changes must be reflected on the license. This includes a change in ownership, a change in location, a change in business activity, or a change in contact information. Resources for us. For information on a business license, you can visit www.chicago.gov/business licensing. You can always stop by and see us in person at the Small Business Center. We're located at 121 North LaSalle, room 800 on the 8th floor. We're open weekdays from 8:30 to 4:30. You can also email us general license questions at businesslicense@cityofchicago.org. You can also email us questions about the website, the Chicago Business Direct, at chicagobusinessdirect@cityofchicago.org. All right, and that concludes the presentation. The contact information for us is at the bottom. You have all our social media, our address, and the legal name of our department.
Great, thanks. Now it's time for questions. A lot of them coming in, of course. I own a cleaning business and operate from home. This is where I store my materials and supplies, but I don't receive customers or transaction business from here. Do I still need a license? If yes, how will zoning approve a residential area?
Yes, you need a license. Zoning will only approve you to clean residential addresses from the home. If you want to do both residential and commercial, you got to obtain a commercial address. And yes, you can store stuff at the home.
If the office is in a leased office, do you need to get zoning approval? If there is somewhere to find the range of the cost of licenses? So two different questions, sorry.
The cost of licenses, it's on chicago.gov/BACP. However, you can always email us at businesslicense@cityofchicago.org. The information is on there. The address information, it's so address specific, it's hard for me to answer that. I would advise to apply in person, and then we can make a determination. However, if you're using shared office space, and that kind of sounds like what you were reading from the question, a shared office space in most cases has already been zoned. So you 9 times out of 10, you probably get approved for whatever license type you're trying to do there.
Yeah, it was a leased office, so. Next question, how can I go about receiving information for the necessary permits and licenses to establish a mobile beverage bar?
If it's alcohol, it's not allowed. Alcohol is only allowed from brick and mortar. However, if you're preparing like prepared drinks that don't contain alcohol, they'll make you get a mobile food license. So you'll go through the same process as any food truck you see on the street. Because making an actual drink from different ingredients, they would consider prepared food.
Great, thank you. When requesting a zoning review for the cleaning business operating from home, do they still need a site plan? If yes, what should be included if I only use 5x5 area for materials and supply storage and have no designated space for office work?
They're not going to ask for a site plan. They're going to ask where you storing your materials and if you have a business vehicle. Zoning, they're going to tell you that the vehicle is not allowed, if it's used for business, to be parked at the residence. So in that case, if you have a vehicle, they'll make you show proof that you're parking a vehicle at a commercial location. And as far as materials go, it's on a case by case basis. They'll make a determination based on what you're telling them you're storing at the residence.
Okay, great. I want to get a license for catering. What do I do?
Catering is simply, if you don't have a restaurant, then you would apply for a shared kitchen user. If you want to serve liquor and cater, there's a caterer's liquor license. That's kind of limited though. You can't charge people for liquor. The liquor is included in the overall price of the actual catering job. So you can only like take tips. You can't charge for individual drinks if you're doing a caterer's liquor license. Thus, the only difference between the shared kitchen user and the caterer's liquor license.
Will I need a license for an event space
Oh, absolutely. A
that
license
doesn't
is,
have a liquor license?
yes, you need a license for an event space. All event spaces now go through special use. So you will have to go through the Zoning Board of Appeals. At the Zoning Board of Appeals hearing, the alderman will have to hear out any objections and they will decide ultimately whether you can move forward with the license. Before you even get to the Zoning Board of Appeals, though, you have to qualify through zoning. So if your zoning is not right, you won't even get the opportunity to go through to the Zoning Board of Appeals. But if the zoning is right, then they'll say, hey, get a special use permit, and then we'll give you the instructions to go through the Zoning Board of Appeals. And if the alderman has zero objections, then we usually move forward, and then we'll grant the license.
Can you describe the process for opening up a food truck? No fryer or real stove?
This is no fryer in the food truck. Well, are you cooking at all in the food truck? That's the second question I would ask. And if it's like not cooking, and it's just like you're warming food in that truck, then most likely it's going to qualify for the mobile, the one that's non-prepared food. You're just warming, which is $700. You come to BACP first. We'll make sure your legal entity and everything is correct. Then you got to have like 4 specific documents, which is liability insurance, vehicle insurance, photo identification, and I think the 4th one is it's articles of incorporation that we got to see. If you got the 4 things for us, then we'll take your money, and then we'll tell you to go meet with the Department of Health. Health will have a consultation with you, and then if health determines you're free to go forward, then they'll set you up for an actual truck inspection. If you pass the truck inspection with health, and prepared food doesn't require a fire inspection, if it's already prepared and you're just warming it up, then you just got to pass the health part, and then we can grant the license.
Okay, great. Is a business license required for business coaches / consultants that work from home and sometimes visit client sites?
It is required. We don't check for it per se, but per the code, yes, if you're doing any type of consulting, any service, period, where you're charging a fee, the license will be required.
For physical locations, what is the typical length of time for getting a business license?
That's hard to say because it depends on what you're doing. Let's just say you're doing a restaurant. That's probably going to take maybe 3 to 4 weeks. There's an in-person inspection. There's a debt check inspection. And the city's kind of short-staffed, so it does take some time to complete those. If you're just doing something like that simple service, like she was doing consulting, that's something we can issue in the same day. Generally, just depends on what the activity is. If it's an activity that doesn't require an inspection, we can do that same day. But if it requires inspections, then minimum probably 3 weeks.
Can you say more about requirements for reselling audio equipment? So any reselling.
If you're reselling, you just gotta have you gotta be able to pass the background check. So any type of used valuables, they will put you just like a jewelry store or a pawn shop. They're gonna make you do a background check, and it depends on how fast each entity that does the background check processes. Because you have to go through BACP, CPD, in the state. And federal usually comes back quick. So it's usually on the city and the state. In most cases, I mean, I see 2 to 3 weeks.
Great. What is a timeline for a pop-up licensing for an art show, for example?
If the zoning's fine, then pop up can be issued the same day. We
Right.
will, however, we want a list of who's participating, and we're going to verify that each person participating has a sales tax number from the Illinois Department of Revenue.
If you have any parking tickets, will they let you get a payment plan or a payment arrangement?
Yes, you would get a payment plan in City Hall, room 107. The Department of Finance has a dedicated person to doing payment plans.
The responses to these questions will not be available to the attendees, but this webinar is being recorded, and you can watch the recording at youtube.com/Chicago BACP. And that was put in the chat, but I could definitely do that again. It's youtube.com/Chicago BACP. Are there community organizations that can help me with getting my license and other support services?
Yeah, they're spread out throughout the city. There is a list of them online. Um, Most of the time, they can answer questions. And if they run into something that they can't answer, they email all of the BACP supervisors in the Small Business Center. So we try to make it as fast for you as possible.
How do I start an elderly care from my 4-bedroom house?
Elderly care. Are you're going to people? Because that's the big thing. You can't have people in your house, but you can go to people. And it's a home health license, I believe, but we can issue that the same day. All your legal entity stuff just has to be in order.
Great. Chicago licenses work in Villa Park, or should I get a license there as well?
You should get a license there as well. I mean, if like let's just say you're doing cleaning, like we wouldn't license a cleaning company in Villa Park. However, if they had a license in Villa Park and they wanted to come clean here, we wouldn't necessarily stop them because by law we can't license Villa Park because it's location specific. And there are some that we can license outside of the city, but that's not one.
If I already obtained a Chicago Park District permit, can I incorporate that with a business license for the same location?
That's okay. That's a unique question. Park district, none of our licenses really apply on park district property. The park district has their own licensing. So if you have a park district license, I mean, it wouldn't allow you to operate anywhere other than the park district.
Outside of zoning, what are some of the considerations for a home-based jewelry business that uses gases in the fabrication process, such as MAP gas and argon?
Okay, that sounds like you're. They would zoning would hear that and they would consider that manufacturing and they would not let that occur at the home. You have to get a commercial location for that.
Okay, great. If you want to change your business from a corporation to an incorporation, can I reach out to BACP for assistance?
BACP would just refer you to the state if you're trying to change your legal entity. The Illinois Secretary of State registers all legal entities.
All of my state licenses and charitable organization documents are in order. How long does the process, including background, take? I am an approved office where I lease space. It is a youth empowerment ages 9 to 24. Parents may leave with youth with a therapist and licensed teachers as well as unlicensed professionals. How much would the license cost? Just curious.
More information is needed to answer that question. I would need to know exactly if you're charging for the service. Because if you're doing that for free, then we wouldn't get involved. But if you are charging for the service, we will get involved. Um, and it goes to a background check. And like I say, most background checks, they come back in like 2 to 3 weeks in most cases. Um, Certain things would not be on the license. So if you're teaching, if you're doing therapy, those are services that are exempt from licensing and only covered by the Illinois Department of Professional Regulations. So those two services would not be on the license. However, we would include anything by the unlicensed professional. So if they're doing something that we can cover, that will be on the license, such as our art class. I'm just throwing out specific things. Tutoring, that's something that we would license. But not therapists, not therapy, and not actual teachers. We don't license those.
So this leads to the next one. Can I have a tutorial or childcare be done from my home?
If childcare is being done from your home, then that is licensed by DCFS. BACP would only license you if you're at a commercial location. So if you're at a home, the DCFS is the only people that are involved.
Okay, this is a very specific question. She's already applied and is on step 4 of her application process. There's a question about the certificate of insurance. They do not currently have an active program and just asking how they should proceed. Is there email address you could provide or a telephone number? It's a very specific question about how to upload the insurance if they're not yet at that stage.
She could email business license at cityofchicago.org.
Perfect.
And that's just business license at city. Unfortunately, if you don't have insurance and you're working with kids, you cannot move forward. So they need like basic liability insurance just in case anything happens to the kids on your watch. The city of Chicago needs to be named as the additional insured. If that policy lapsed or was canceled for any reason, we need to be notified, which is the main reason why we're listed as the additional insured. But we couldn't move forward without it because we won't license you to be with kids if you don't have liability.
Perfect. Do I need to update my business license if I do a BYOB event? Also, do I need a business license if I sell tickets for events and serve alcohol?
No,
Assuming the alcohol isn't being sold, but perhaps is reflected in the ticket cost.
I would recommend that you email us to get the BYOB rules, but there's no license change. They'll just want to inform you of what you can and cannot do. But there's not something that we would put on the license that you're doing BYOB. We'll just give you BYOB rules and then we move forward.
Okay, great. I need a brick and mortar, which is what I constantly hear trying to open up my business. What can I do to obtain a space for my store?
Store, so that would include that you're selling something. Um, I mean, as long as it's not food, the store can be done from shared office space, I suppose. Um, However, they're going to ask you where you're storing the materials. Zoning is going to have little basic questions. Shared office space is probably always the way to go. I'm not supposed to refer you to anybody, but the same two companies are going to keep coming up in all your internet searches. And I mean, that's usually everybody comes to us with a contract for Regis or WeWorks. Those are the two biggest ones in Chicago.
You can also reach out to your neighborhood business development centers that are funded by the city. Usually they have a post as to what's available in their neighborhoods for openings of brick and mortar areas or facilities. I purchase a business and want to change or sell the name. Do I go to the Illinois Secretary of State as well?
Yes, you would go to the Illinois Secretary of State if you want to change the name. Yes, and that's if it's a registered legal entity. So it would have to be like a limited liability partnership, a LLC, a corporation, non-for-profit corporation. Those are the four most common ones. If you're one of those, you definitely want to go to the Secretary of State.
Great. Is creating an AUD on my property to rent as an Airbnb allowed?
Well, I didn't even see that question.
It's in
Repeat
the
that again.
Sure. It's in the Q&A if you're looking. Is creating an AUD on my property to rent as an Airbnb?
That one, I don't know, because I don't know what the AUD abbreviation is. Yeah, I don't do the. That's Greg usually that does the shared housing stuff. For that, I don't want to step on his toes. I would say just email him at houseshare@cityofchicago.org. Yeah, see, accessory dwelling unit. Yeah, I still don't want to answer that because that's stepping on his toes, and he might have some very specific rules for that. So I'll type that in. Hold on, house share at City of Chicago. Yeah, just send him an email. He's pretty responsive.
Okay, great. Giving everyone another minute for any other questions.
Let me verify that email. I got my phone here. I don't want to go searching on the internet in this room. So house. Oh, it's plural. So house shares. Let me change that. There we go.
Okay, great. One more minute for any other questions. Getting lots of thank yous and great information. It's looking like that is all the questions. So thank you, Lawrence, as always, for the great presentation and great information. Attendees, thank you for attending. I hope you got some great information in your questions answered. And Lawrence put the 2 emails in the chat if you're looking to have any follow-up questions. So thank you, everyone. Everyone have a great night. Take care.